Good morning. I'm Rachel Witt, Art Programming Coordinator at Westminster Village in West Lafayette, Indiana. And you have joined me for Brain Boot Camp. Our theme today is nature photography. It's not actually National Nature Photography Day until June the 14th. But this is one of my favorites, and I wanted to go ahead and do it. I'm kind of focusing on photography in general this week for both this and also for our programming. So go ahead, let's get started. Let's get our brains moving this morning. So we'll jump right in. Let's go with a little long-term memory. So one of the very first nature photographers was a man named Carleton Watkins. He actually was born in New York, and then he went to California as part of the gold rush and tried out some different professions, and kind of by accident found out that he was good at photography. So he is the artist, the photographer really credited with Yosemite National Park. So his images, a lot of times they talk about William Henry Jackson and Ansel Adams, who did photograph Yosemite, that area, much more extensively. But Carleton Watkins, it was his photos that were actually used by the federal government and conservationists to start that process of the park. So our first activity, and this is just a 1-minute activity. We're going to warm up slow into this. I would like for you to take a moment, jot down on your piece of paper the names of all of the national parks you can think of. And if, as you're thinking, you think of some state parks, well, just start another column and work through those. So depending on how you've traveled and what you've seen. So again, 1 minute, national parks, state parks as a side thing. All right, ready, set, go. Alrighty, so time is up, and I thought this was interesting. There were a lot more than I realized there are. So there are 419 national park sites, but only 62 of them have the national park designation in their name. So the other sites are national historic sites, monuments, seashores, recreation areas, etc. So, I'm curious to know how many you came up with. So I'm gonna run, I've got a list. It's small print because there are 62. So I'm gonna list, I'm gonna put it here. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see it. You certainly do not want me to read them all. They're in alphabetical order though, by the name of the park, not by the state. So perhaps on the screen it'll be a little bigger and you'll be able to at least identify the ones that you put on there. So let's take a look at that. All right. For our next activity, one of the rules of photography, and particularly nature photography or any photography outside, is that noonday sunlight, when the sun is directly overhead, is pretty much the worst time to try and take a photo. So the sunlight, and it's just very harsh, it's unappealing. So when you can, you're supposed to take nature photos early or late in the day. So Ansel Adams was kind of known in particular for getting up in the wee hours of the morning and going in or camping so that he could get, the perfect shot. And I think that is the norm for nature photographers, particularly in really large, grand things like Yosemite. What I've got here, I'm going to put a series of little, they're clock face images. And as quickly as you can, this is just a 30-second activity, but as quickly as you can, write down what time they are. That's it. Just look at the clock faces. There are no numbers. They're just the hands, and identify the time. So 30 seconds. Here we go. Ooh, that was fast. So I will put them back here on the screen again so that you can see them. And so wherever you get stopped, you can follow along to the end. The times are, starting the top left, 1, 6, 11, 4:30, and 9:30. In the second row, 4, 9, 2:30, 7:30, 12:30. In the third row, 2, 7, 12, 5:30, and 10:30. And in the last row, 3, 8, 1:30, 6:30, and 11:30. That was a lot. Okay, we'll just hop on to, since we're in kind of the math zone, we're going to stay there actually. I have got here off of the North American Nature Photography Association website, I have there a chart with their different membership levels, so different amounts you would pay to belong to this organization. And then I have a little piece of information about John and his wife. And then below that I have 4 questions. So this is a 3-part, this is a 3-minute activity to let you look at the chart, look at the information, and look at the questions. So 3 minutes, North American Nature Photography Association. so I've calculated the answers that I believe to be correct. I hope they're correct. So answer to the first question is, how many years combined has he been a member? He has been a member for 6 years. I have to think about that a second. 6 years. So 2 as a student, 1 as a single adult, 2 more as a single adult, and then 1 as a joint membership. So 6 years total. So for all of those, $480 were paid, and he paid $455 of those. His mom, of course, paid for his very first one. And so now how to register for 7 more years. I think the cheapest way to do that is to register for 3 two-year memberships for 6 years, and then do 1 year at the general membership for $100. So I think the least expensive way to do a 7-year membership is $640. That's my guess, anyway. Those of you who are better at math than I am, if I've got this wrong, let me know. So many of you will recognize this gentleman right here, Ansel Adams, and along with a very famous photograph of a dune. His work, of course, is renowned and beautiful, and we're just going to go simple in language right now, and I'm going to ask you to word mine this word photography. So a word mine is when you try and build 3 or more letter words out of a larger word. So for example, some of you will say, well, photo, I can mine photo out of photography. You are right, and I just took it from you. I'm so sorry. This is a 60-second activity. See how many words you can come with out of photography. All right, that was a fun one. There were a lot of words. So you might have started, of course, with the obvious ones, photo and graph, that are just kind of inside that word. Also, you could have gone the OT route, hot, pot, got, rot, the AY route, so pay, ray, hay. You might have gotten a consonant blend in the front of that too, like gray or tray. And then you have the oat and the goat. Also to, goo, happy. I was really excited to find that. I never find the 5-letter words in there, darn it. And also the word ago, like long ago and far away. I'm sure that you came up with more. Those were just the ones I came up with. And I did hold myself to the same amount of time. So for this next activity, this is working memory. When we're in person, I always apologize for this in advance, but it is important to work, exercise our working memory. So I have here an image I'm going to put up in just a minute that has all of the different camera brands available for digital photography right now. So at least as far as I know of. And so I'm going to give you 60 seconds to study that image. And they're done actually in their logo font and type, so hopefully it'll help with some of them. But you're going to try and recall as many of them as you can when we come back. 60 seconds, study the image. so here they are. Here's that image again. You can take a look and kind of self-correct. Some of these names I do not recognize. I don't know about you, but I did not recognize some of these names at all. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next thing, and this is, oh, sorry, maybe I need coffee. So this is a quick one, but I'm gonna ask you to just kind of think about your personal experience. If you were going to go outside today with the camera in your hand and take pictures, what might be 10 things that you would encounter that you would take a photo of outside? This one we're going to spend 60 seconds on. All right, so 10 things you might photograph in nature. Like we do sometimes, I'm going to ask you to sort that into 2 different lists. Things that are alive, things that are not alive. If you were to take a step out of your home today, walk around Westminster's campus, and photograph. So things that are alive, it might include people, so your neighbors or friends, staff, also animals. I've heard there's some great little ducks up by the front entry, and I've seen at least one really large rabbit on my way in every morning. Also, there's a lot of birds, that type of thing. Other things that are alive, of course, are all the plants and flowers and trees and all that stuff that you might choose to photograph. Things that are not alive, that could include the benches or the fountain or the cars or the building or oh golly, there's a whole lot of things you might photograph in that situation. So hopefully, even if you're not taking photos, hopefully you get a chance to get out and take a walk and take a look at what's around. So our next activity is going to be a word association activity. So I've given you a list of 12. Yep, there are 12 things. And those 12 things, I would like you to pair them by items that are most similar in color. So for example, I have at the very top of it the word leaf. And so then I'm going to scroll down through the list and I'm going to try and find something else that is the color of a leaf. And you're going to move through the whole list that way. So you should end up with 6 pairs of items. They don't have to be exactly the same color, but there are things that are the same. There's a pair for every object. So let's say this one is another, let's go 1.5 minutes. I think it might take a minute to kind of sort through all this. So 90 seconds, here we go. Alrighty, so how did you do? I've got the chart right here and how I paired it up. You could have worked just based on color. So I went through, for example, and said, okay, snake, leaf. Those are both green. Lizard and moss, those are both green. You could have rearranged those, so that's not wrong. Really, you're looking for pairs of things that are green, red, gray, or brown. If you did that, you're good. So we'll move on to the next activity, and actually I'm just going to keep the camera running on this one because it's a quickie. But what you're going to do is take a look at this picture here by famous nature photographer Frans Lanting. Might be saying his name incorrectly, but it's the rule of thirds, and it's how the photographer will orient or position the camera or subject to get a good balanced third, because the eye will naturally go to intersecting lines. So I love this coloration on this, and this is naturally occurring. You didn't edit it or change it, but you can clearly see that rule of thirds in play. So on the top you have the water lilies, and the center section it's kind of stems and fish, and the bottom of course is the bottom of the body of water, and you've got the grassy and the grungy stuff in there. And that's a big part of why that photo is so appealing to us to look at. So our activity, our next one, is a very, very quick one. I'm going to ask you to take your piece of paper that you're holding here. I've got a Post-it note. It could be any size or shape of piece of paper, but I'm just going to ask you to fold it into thirds. That's it. Fold it into thirds like you were going to put it in an envelope or tuck it in your purse or wallet or whatever. But this is a fine motor activity. Just folding that paper into thirds. There we have it. Okay. So we're going to move on to our last activity. So I am going to got here on the screen a chart with some different word parts, and this activity is called word knitting. I actually pulled it out of this book. This is one of the resource books that I use, so I want to give credit where credit is due. But word knitting is where you get a word is broken apart. It may or may not be at the syllable break, so it could be anywhere in the word. But the word is broken apart into two sections, and it's your job to seek and find the sections to make complete words. This one is perfect because it's all names of flowers. So if you look at the chart in the very top left hand, it's TU, two, and then you're going to find lip. So the flower name is tulip. And you can go through, there's no order, rhyme, or reason to this, but you're going to go through and try and identify as many flower names as you can. This is a 3-minute activity. It's our very last activity today. Here you go.
I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here every day. So glad I'm here, you know, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm so glad I'm here every day. I'm gonna sing while I'm here, sing while I'm here, sing while I'm here every day. Sing while I'm here, gonna sing while I'm here, sing while I'm here every day. You know, joy brought me here, joy brought me here, joy brought me here, here today. Joy brought me here, joy brought me here, joy brought me here, here today. And love brought me here, love brought me here, love brought me here, here today. Love brought me here, you know, love brought me here. love brought me here, here today. I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here every day. So glad I'm here, you know I'm so glad I'm here, so glad I'm here every day. I'm so glad I'm here, here today. You know I'm so glad I'm here, here today. I'm so glad I'm here every day. I'm so glad I'm here every day.
And that's it. It's a little hard to track it, I know, but hopefully as you were able to get comfortable with it in that amount of time, you could start to piece things out. Here's a list right here of all those available flowers, and see if you came up with any of those. I don't know about you, but the two part ones, like the Sweet William and the Water Lily, those caught me off guard because I kept expecting them to be one full word, even though they're not. So that's the end of Brain Boot Camp today. I hope you've had fun. I know that for some, I've heard from many of you last week, and thank you to all who responded to me. I think the consensus is that when I can bring Brain Boot Camp live, I will do that. And hopefully everyone will be able to enjoy it. We'll go through what safety and cleaning and all that looks like for that program. But for now, I'm just glad we had the time together today. And I'll see you next time. There will be more information coming out about that. We will not have a Brain Boot Camp next week because I'm in the middle of sorting out the studios to prepare for classes. So next week there will be no video programming from the studios, and then we'll see where we are. We'll reevaluate. Have a great day.